Well, good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Tom Schlueter with today's Tom's Take. Sometimes when we go out and do assignments on the land as intercessors, you just run into something that seems very humorous and also very much to the point. I'll get there in a second. Back in 2007, when Chuck Pierce set me in over the birthing of this new apostolic prayer network, the Texas Apostolic Prayer Network, we were in the state capital of Texas. That was the place where we could find to meet. It was the auditorium in the Capitol. As we were there gathered together in a packed room, probably over 300 plus in the room, Chuck Pierce was with us. He had a key. He commissioned me. I was about ready to kind of sit back and relax and just let Chuck speak into whatever needed to be spoken into this new network. But no, he handed me the mic and said, "It's all yours." Well, I was caught a little bit off guard, but not so much off guard that the Lord didn't immediately speak a prophetic word through me. And he made it very clear. He said, "I will use this state to help change a nation if you'll allow me to deal with your two primary sins, pride and independence." Now, I've shared that with you before, but I want to highlight it again. Texans, as you know, don't have any trouble demonstrating both pride and independence. If anything, we go overboard. But yet God was saying, "I need you to give these to me." So we have been passionate with the Lord in making sure, Lord, would you keep us in a place where we are demonstrating humility and where we are demonstrating covenant, being dependent on you and dependent on each other. We cannot do this in old mindsets, and we definitely cannot do it with any kind of a spirit of pride and independence. That won't work in this season. When we are here a week away from a convocation for the birthing of a nation, the Lord has been highlighting me. I started really yesterday, highlighting for me and for all of us. We've got to get into that position of humility and covenant. We need to bow down before him and acknowledge that he is our God, that he is doing something in our midst, that he has invited us as a grassroots people to be a part of, but not to be the ones who run it. He will not allow that. Now, let's go to what was humorous, because a couple years back, one of the assignments that we were taking on statewide was to deal very primarily on location with these issues of pride and independence. We had a team of intercessors, powerful intercessors, that went to one of the birthplace locations of our state. Guess what it was called? Independence, Texas. There at Independence, Texas, one of our foremost leaders of our republic, Sam Houston, was baptized in his older years there at Independence, Texas. But they went there and they dealt with that independent spirit. It's also one of the birthplaces of one of the major religious colleges. Baylor is in that location. So we knew that it was dealing not only with a governmental or a political aspect, but also with a religious aspect. We need to come together covenantally. Well, then we had to traverse the entire state, going way up into the Panhandle, to go to the next location that the Lord had for us. And you know the name of that town already, don't you? Pride, Texas. Can't make this stuff up. So we arrive. We probably had 20, 30 people show up. We had to peel the heaven flags. We had the Texas flag. We had all of our instruments that we usually use when we are doing prophetic acts on the ground. And we arrive, and there's no town left. All that's left is the cemetery. As we approach the cemetery, and you'll see this on the picture on today's thing, on the day's post, all that was left was the cemetery and the gate into the cemetery, which simply decreed Pride Cemetery. Folks, we need to come into a season now, not a week from now, not a month or a year from now, but now. We need to come into a season where we are embracing covenant and we are embracing humility as never before. And I don't speak that just over Texas, because I'll guarantee you, I have been in other states, I've lived in other states, and we all have pride. And we all have a spirit of independence where we can handle this on our own. We don't need anybody else. Whether it's another state, or whether it's another congregation in our town, or whether it's just another people group, another tribe of people that we usually don't hang out with, but we don't need them. We've got this covered. I can't tell you how many times I've been on the receiving end of that, and it doesn't feel very good. But even more horribly, I can't remember the many times in my early years that I presented that idea to others as well. Don't worry, we've got this covered. And the Lord says, no, you don't. I need you to come with me and bow down before me in humility. And then you need to join your hearts together with me and with each other in covenant, because that is what will birth a nation. Now, to highlight this, the Lord just always does this. As I've been telling you, I've been listening and reading this devotional by Brian and Candace Simmons called The Joshua Generation. It's a 40-day devotional based on Joshua. And today's chapter was dealing with there's sin in the camp. And it's talking about Achan and about what he had done to bring disaster on the people of Israel as they tried to move from Jericho to Ai to take a city which, hey, by any means was small, insignificant, and could be taken easily by, quote unquote, human strength. I find it very interesting, as Brian does in his book, to think they didn't even ask God on this one. They didn't take off their shoes. They didn't implore of him, how do we do this? They just simply said, hey, we've got a plan here. We can carry this out. We don't need but just a few thousand people to go and take this. And they were whipped. Now they're struggling and they're wondering, well, why in the world? What's happened here? I thought God was going to deliver us, and he was going to bring all of these cities, all of this territory into our possession. And the Lord reveals that there's been sin in the camp. And it's interesting that one person's sin in this case, one family's sin, affected the entire people, the entire tribe. I shouldn't say tribe because it was 12 tribes. Well, let me read to you a portion of Brian's book. Again, it's called The Joshua Generation by Brian and Candace Simmons. This is first off quoting from verse 21, and I'm sorry I don't have the chapter. It's Joshua 7. And this is Achan, what he says to Joshua. I saw among the plunder an exquisite robe from Babylon, 200 pieces of silver, and a 50-shekel bar of gold. I wanted them badly, so I took them and buried them in my tent with the silver underneath. And then he reads, Joshua then discovered the evidence. He went to the tent of Achan, and he found 3 things, a Babylonian garment, silver, and gold. It must have been very attractive and valuable. Part of the allure was that it was a mantle, a Babylonian mantle, a robe. And then Brian goes on to say mantles represent callings and appointments of God. Achan was lusting for a mantle. Not only was it beautiful, but possibly lusting for a mantle to wear, to show how important he was. He was trying to take the mantle that was not his. You see, God is the one who distributes mantles. He's the one who releases garments of righteousness, garments of prophetic revelation, and mantles of callings. This is a symbolic warning to us not to lust or to be jealous for someone else's gift or somebody else's prophetic revelation. To do so is to go after something that is not ours. Our callings are given to us by God. He makes our callings and our elections sure. Texas, I will use you to change the nation. And maybe you should just put your state's name in there too. If you'll let me deal with your two primary sins, pride and independence. Humble yourself under the hand of God. As you do that, then He Himself will exalt you. He Himself will lift you up. He Himself will bring you into your position that He has destined for you as a part of the overall ecclesia. And be in covenant with me, He says, and with covenant with each other. The Lord says, I'm into relationships. I'm into doing this together as one. Drop all of your desires to handle it on your own or to have the only one with the mantle. No, we're not in that season anymore. So as we are 1 week away from a gathering, a convocation of eagles, let's press in to an ascended place with Christ and say, Lord, here I am, your humble servant. Bind us together with you, Lord, in covenant. For the covenant that we have in you will destroy the enemy and will birth a nation. Wow. Blessings to all of you today. Let's get ready. It's going to be fun. We'll see you again tomorrow.